Shishini. Top of the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to you, whomever you may be, wherever you may be watching, looking, or listening. Of course, it's your boy Aunt Mo, trapping out the mind of a man studio, and welcome to another episode. Welcome to the network, my guy, my gal, and welcome more importantly to Church Flow. This is where we talk about the things that must be said for the betterment of the body. Point blank and the period, my people. And so I want to welcome everybody who's been around. You keep coming on back around now. You hear? You show them boys how you do it up in Harlem. There, boy. Love you from the bottom of my corazón. And for those people who are first timers, please stick and stay. We don't even got to explain ourselves. You just stick and you stay, dog. You ain't got nothing else better to do. But back to the topic at hand. Man, thank everybody for tuning in. And we are going to be talking about something that is very much, well, someone that is very much a hot topic. And I want to talk about what I've heard thus far. I want to talk about the research that I've done. And then I want to get to the crux of who this person is and what are the final thoughts. What does the church have to say about this? You know, was he a good representation of the church? Who is this he? Who is this he that we speak of? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me go ahead and pull up the element. The Charlie Kirk. A man that just recently lost his life. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I saw clips of information about him, of him debating, of him standing for what I believed and what I think other people who were just going off of what their eyes and ears could give them as far as information. He seemed to be a Christian guy. But with that being said, I'm not so sure if the sentiment of who he is actually accurate with what his mission was. And so what I desire to do tonight, hopefully we can get some interaction from those in the chat, but if not, I want to just talk about some things that I saw. I don't have a bunch of clips and things of that nature, but as believers, I think it is important that we be able to decipher and have a level of judgment. And let's be clear, when we talk about something like judgment, we're not called to judge the world. We're not called to judge people who don't believe in Jesus, who don't even believe in God. So keep that in mind as we go through what we have known to be about this man. And so with that being said, I have some notes. And for anybody chiming in, let me know who in the chat. You just came into my house. Now you got to say hello. And I'll get to those comments. But I did want to pull up what I kind of surmised as I looked at his content, right? Charlie Kirk, who was he? Was he a white nationalist? That's interesting to me because when I looked up the definition of what a white nationalist is, essentially it is somebody that is for the betterment of the white brother. Simple. Somebody that is going to push agendas and everything that is geared towards that of the white man in America. And we'll say America more specifically because that's where we live at. If you're looking from another place, please let us know where you're listening from. Miss Reese, how you doing? How are you doing? Hope that you are having a great night. And I'm trying to put your comment up here, but I don't see where it is at. Oh, it was at the bottom. Let me try that again. All right, that was weird. Anyway, moving forward, was he a white nationalist? Did he have this agenda to, I will say, forward the white race? Was that a part of his master plan, regardless of what it is that he stood for or portrayed to the greater public? So I'll say over the last 2 days, outside of the news that we have gotten from all the media outlets, I'll say this: it is now widely searched. If you go look at who Charlie Kirk is, it will say that he's a white supremacist. Do I believe that that is fully the story that is to be told here? I can't say that it is. Um, I will be able to tell you in a second some of the things that I was able to pull up from the things that I've watched, and I'll tell you the extent of how much I was able to actually research what it is. I watched him go to Cambridge and debate quote unquote 450 people. Now it was him versus 450 students from Cambridge. Now, what I have grown to see, and even as I go into any more detail, because a lot of what I saw was him not on his podcast, if he actually had that type of outlet, which I'm sure he did, but I seen him debating people who flat out just disagreed with what he stood for, and they were very emotional, very informed, only to the point of being able to prove him wrong, only to the point of being able to justify that they didn't have very good feelings for what he represented. And if I'm being honest with myself, I'm not sure if emotion, especially when you talk about something like this, if it's something that needs to be brought into talking about politics, talking about a man losing his life, talking about a man who, if we know nothing else about him, was a husband and a father as well. Um, so I'm Will tuning in from Killeen. Okay. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. And so yes, so let me go ahead and go down the list. Let me go down the list and we can get into it. If y'all let me know in the comments what y'all thinking, all right? So from my research, he is a right-wing conservative political pundit. He is a Trump supporter. He made his bones traveling around to numerous campuses, college campuses in America. I wouldn't always say debating, but defending what it is that he believed. He was a very conservative person, and he also believed that Trump was one of the few ways for this country to get back to what was true. Whatever made this America once great in the minds of men like him, he stood by that 1,000%. So really quickly, a few takeaways from what I caught from the young minds of America that were debating with him. I'll be honest, I think that there's a lot of people going to universities, but I don't think it's a lot of people that are actually free thinkers. I don't think it's a lot of people in this case that are well read. And I think if you only look at the information that feeds your argument, if you never seek to understand where somebody else is coming from in general, no matter if you're on the debate team, if you work at a Fortune 5,000 company, no matter if you're in a marriage, if you never seek to get the understanding of the other person, you will be gravely mistaken. I believe that although I don't think that he was, in fact, a Cub Scout, a Boy Scout, I do believe that men like Charlie Kirk absolutely have an agenda. And I don't think the agenda is always what people think it is. I believe that just like Candace Owens, I believe, and she said comments that said she lost her best friend that day. Now, I'm not here to say that what happened to him was okay. I'm never going to be that person. I'm never going to sit on here and promote violence and act like people harming other people for their views is okay. But I believe that the students that often disagreed with him were so far to the other side, so liberal, so I think sometimes in being able to argue something, passion can't be the only reason why you want to have a voice to say something. In the instance of determining what somebody's, if there are more than two genders, what makes race important in America, you can't be so for what you believe that you're not even able to provide legitimate definitions for things. Oftentimes there were people that sat in front of him and said things like, a woman is defined as if I wake up in the morning and say I want to be a woman. I'm a woman today. And that's not a definition. Most people who take a liberal approach don't understand that science matters. Most people who overly depend on science don't realize that the supernatural matters. Most people who depend overly on the supernatural, the spiritual, typically don't take a look at science because it's mainly the thing that will back up what you believe. As Americans, it is very important, as human beings, forget just Americans, it is so important that we become more well versed and more well studied with the things that we talk about in life, right? And as me being a man of faith, I believe that it is ultimately important that we understand a few key cogs. Now, I will be jumping around on here tonight with the points that I want to make and to talk about the man who I believe from my research who Charlie Kirk was. But I believe that most things are not meant to be fixed. Most relationships will never be a 10 out of 10 if we're talking about a realistic scale of everything working for each other. Race relations will never be at the utmost highest or the best or whatever you want to make it out to be, because this is in fact a fallen world. And if you want to look no further than this situation, a man lost his life. I don't care what you believe his views were, if you agreed with his faith, if you believed with his policies and his agendas, no man deserves to lose his life for what he believes. If you believe that dogs are cats and cats are rats, that is your choice in the land of the free, the home of the brave. Freedom of speech. Now, we also understand that most things come with consequences. I have the freedom to go harm someone if I so choose, but it also is going to come with backlash. It is going to come with a certain set of consequences and repercussions. And as long as we understand that fact, then I say you go off, girlfriend. You do your thing. But understand that most things in life are not free. The air you breathe is free to a certain extent. The things that we get to do in this country came off the backs of people being able to fight for that freedom. That's the thing that actually makes America great. That is some of the things that Charlie Kirk actually talked about. Now, I will say this. I watched him debate 25 liberal students at a university in America. Which one, I'm not sure. But to win a debate, I'll say it this way. To win a debate has so little to do with me being able to out-talk you or to out-yell you or to who's the most witty. And I believe that most of the time in America, the reason why white relations and black relations and Hispanic relations and Asian relations and in whatever relations that you can think of don't work out, Polynesian relations, I don't care what relations you think about, the reason that we cannot come together to come to an understanding is because we don't seek to understand each other. There is no love. If you clicked on this post because you're somebody who doesn't know who I am, the title was "Love Thy Neighbor?" ? Because in a world where Christians, and I'll put a air quote, Christians, some could have believed that what happened to him was par for the course and it was justification. We have become so desensitized to murder in America that things like this are talked about for a couple of days and they're swept under the rug. When the very act that was brought against him, which if you talk about the Second Amendment and having the right to bear arms is something that I do believe in and I will absolutely support, I take issue with the whole of first of all, let's be clear. For all intents and purposes, the person that is going to be I believe, to stand trial for the murder of Charlie Kirk, believed to be one of the biggest Trump supporters that you know. He dressed up as Trump for Halloween, and this was not said to be a joke. This was somebody who was supposed to really support Trump, who supported the Republican views and value systems. But we are to believe that he also decided to take this man's life because he believes that he was a fascist of some sort. This is the main issue that I have with people who don't read between the lines. Now, to be clear, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am not. I am a believer through and through. I believe in Jesus Christ. Let me be clear when I say that. I am a believer. A lot of the things from the standpoint of not anything that had to do with immigration, nothing that had to do with women's issues or black people's issues. I'm not saying I stood with Charlie Kirk on those things, but he made some good points that even the people that he debated agreed with. We are going to absolutely deal with some of the issues that I believe people who had an issue with Charlie Kirk, what those issues were. All right, so let's look at that. Let me say this. First of all, let me go back and say that I believe that Charlie Kirk, and this is just me being a fair reporter, a person who I look down the middle at what was right, what was wrong before I surmise what my judgment is about a person or what they believe in, what they stand for. I believe that from what I saw, like I said, that Charlie Kirk was a right-wing conservative political pundit. His agenda was to do the things that he believed were going to make America continue to be what he believed was the greatest country ever since the beginning of time. I saw him to be incredibly intelligent. I saw him to be well studied. I saw him to have a very traditionalist view to life. What I also saw, I saw him as also a Trump supporter, which is obvious. His emotions, his ideals, his belief system, his thoughts were not emotion based. What he stood for or what he believed in had nothing to do with how he felt. I think it was very clear because he always managed to be under control no matter what the conversation was. So with that being said, let me look at the comments really quick, see if somebody's chimed in. What's up, Omar? My guy Omar, what's up, my guy? Man, for my people who tap in and love what I do and appreciate your boy, make sure you hit the like for me. It just allows more people to come into the room. You feel me? But appreciate you for stopping in, my guy Omi Hurst. He needs to do food reviews because he's fire like that, man. He'll make you want to go eat a barbecue sandwich with just barbecue and cheese on it. You hear me? But let me go into what I believe is the issue with what people took issue with Charlie Kirk and men like Charlie Kirk. Let me be clear. Men who have a very traditional conservative view on life, a very retrospective viewpoint on race, religion, whatever. So let me say this. I believe that with men like Charlie Kirk, which let me be very clear on who I'm talking about, the European, Anglo-Saxon, white man in America. I believe the issue is that it comes off as mildly ignorant when it comes to certain statements that he makes, when it comes to certain views that he has based off of what numbers can depict, right? If you look at something like during the day, I work at the post office. And when we talk about having issues with management, for example, at the post office, the issues that we run into is that you can look at me, you can look at a number, you can look at a spreadsheet, and you can tell me that this spreadsheet determines that it should take you this long to do this long to do that, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't account for human interactions, issues with dogs, abnormal things like heat or rain, truck issues, all different type of things that can come into effect. Heavier volume than normal when it comes to like actual mail pieces, things of that nature, right? So in that same way, it comes off as mildly ignorant when you make certain comments that you could back with a point or a number or statistic, but it doesn't actually speak to the core of who you may be disrespecting or offending, right? So he uses very poor choice of words at times. His tone with a young lady that actually graduated from Cambridge, she was a black woman, and I apologize that I didn't get her name. I wanted to get off and get here, and I just saw this interview today to speak to it. But he spoke to her with a very condescending tone at times and raised his voice in a way that made me, in my heart of hearts, feel a way about how he was speaking to her. And she held her composure and she was cool. And she then picked up and continued with the debate. But I believe that there's a smug way that he came off to people at times. And so when you say something like, if you got on a plane, you would be afraid if you saw, or concerned if you saw a black pilot, that is something that comes off as mildly ignorant. Now, he offered context around what he was actually talking about in one of those debates when he said it was based around the idea of DEI and or affirmative action. The idea that those programs, well, the first of all, the fact that a DEI program or for affirmative action had to be put in place absolutely speaks to the idea of systematic racism. The idea that I have to be, it's just like the Rooney Rule in football, where I have to make sure that I interview a certain amount of minority candidates before I can actually pick a white Anglo-Saxon male for a job. So the fact that there's even a rule that says I have to do that indicates that there is some grave issue with how you go about doing what you do in hiring or providing resources or whatever it may be. But Charlie Kirk spoke to the idea that DEI didn't equip the most qualified for any position, or that affirmative action didn't equip people, regardless of what they look like, whatever their hue was, that it didn't put the biggest and brightest minds at work in whatever it was. For instance, he brought up Kamala Harris, and he spoke to the idea that when Biden was looking for a candidate, he firstly said that he was going to be picking a black woman. Now, it's a word I'm looking for here, I apologize. At the ground floor of that, I don't think it's a bad statement, right? I'm going to pick a black female candidate, right? But the idea of it wasn't based off of what he believed her merit was, right? So for those people who may get offended by him making a statement like that, the reality of that he's speaking to is this. She was the district attorney for San Francisco, where she wasn't good at what she did. She didn't lower crime. Every position that she actually worked in created an issue. So she actually, in his belief system, she wasn't actually good at what she did to earn the nod to be the VP of America. But he believed that Biden was pandering for black votes. If you vote for Trump, you're not black, which, let's be clear, that was one of the dumbest statements that could have ever been said, right? You're pandering in yourself. It's like saying I keep hot sauce in my purse. But we like the idea of being tropes. It's Meg Thee Stallion twerking at a convention or some Democratic rally. It's like, why do we decide to be dogging pony shows to be a part of what they have going on? So statements like that displayed that there was a level of mild ignorance when it came to what Charlie Kirk actually believed in. There's also the no free school lunch. So somebody asked him, so kids shouldn't be able to eat? And his response was, well, no, kids should be able to eat, but their parents should go get jobs. Now, let's be clear. I'm not saying that young white Americans don't benefit from school lunch. Just like the reality is that whatever age white American woman benefited from DEI more than anybody, right? But primarily, it's like talking about the recidivism rate or how Black Americans represent 13% of the population, but commit 58% of the crimes according to statistics, right? All those things could be true at face value based off of what those numbers dictate. But to be ignorant to the fact that black people would be the most affected by not having school lunches. There are plenty of kids in America that would not eat if it wasn't for free lunch programs. And that program, unlike WIC, food stamps, government housing, Section 8, unlike those programs, the kids literally would be the only ones that benefited from it. Now, black people, we're going to have to sit down and wrap a taste and have a conversation, because obviously there are some things that serve as a disconnect within our community when we talk about these programs. What I don't like is the idea that when Candace Owens or Charlie Kirk speak to the idea of, in 75% of black households, that the father isn't present, that we breeze right over that as if it doesn't matter. It absolutely matters. When you look at your white counterparts, the numbers are astronomically in the opposite direction. And what you don't realize that you do is subtly disrespect the importance of me being present in my kid's life. So we'll gloss over the reality that we have so many fatherless homes, that it contributes to lack of good education, that it contributes to high crime rates, that it contributes to poor contributions to society. But every time when we talk about why these things are in place, now we want to go talk about Jim Crow. Now we want to go talk about the new slave deal. Now we want to go back and talk about slavery itself. Now we can get into the conversation of when are we, as, and I'll say young black even believers, old black believers, at what point, it's a bit frustrating, because what I believe a person like Charlie Kirk does or did is represents a reality check that no matter who we try to blame for where we are not at as a people, as a culture, whatever, it is still going to be on us to do something about it. Now, my theory, as I've stated before, I strongly believe that none of these things are going to change. Bruce Wayne Glass in the building, my guy, my player, my partner, my kinfolk. Shout out to Omar. He didn't know what kinfolk meant, y'all. He saw me at work. He said, "Hey, what's a kinfolk?" He said his kid asked him if he know what kinfolk meant, so he wanted to ask me because he didn't know if it was gang related. I'm like, dude, I am not gang related. But man, my guy Bruce Glass, it's always a pleasure, man. Make sure you hit that like button. You know what I'm saying? Let's get some more people in here to have this conversation before my battery dies. All right, let's see what Ms. Reese said. I don't think people think about it from that aspect, the importance of a man being in the household. Does it need to start with the government? So I absolutely don't believe. So I am one of those people who believe that you don't need to have much government interference. The founding fathers, as I heard them talk about with the person that he was debating with, that they agreed on today, is that what we're missing. When the founding fathers started this nation, they wanted to have minimal government interference. The small bit of programs and things that were put in place, they did not want the government to have the largest say in what would go on a day-to-day basis. But here's the reality. Let's get back to the list, right? So when we look at certain things, because what ends up happening is, I believe, and now this is just a thought that I've came up with in this moment, it's a cycle, because the same things that are used to, quote unquote, put you down or to disqualify you are the same things that will push you towards things like governmental assistance. For example, we're talking about redlining. That is literally drawing a line around a certain place on a map or something like that, and then dictating and controlling housing, who gets in, disqualifying them on what we knew to be was based off of color, based off of race, uh, more so dictating. Even if you had a high score, a high credit score, you were getting denied for stuff that white counterparts with equal or lesser credit score or even money made, they were getting approved. Black people were still getting denied. So redlining, controlling the neighborhoods in which people actually move into, get to settle in, Jim Crow, new Jim Crow, slavery, all of those things, right? So if you really are people who struggle with that, right? Let's not forget prison. What is it? Something to pipeline. Something to something pipeline. I hate that I can't say it right, but it's basically the idea of like, you know, you're in a you're misbehaving as a kid. Maybe they give you medicine. You act up a few times. They send you to juvie or something like that. You end up like being a candidate, even based off of that type of situation. It's a high chance that you're going to go to prison. So you got those type of things. So now you get out, you can't get a job. You become a repeat offender. You can't get housing. You depend on food stamps or whatever that is. It's a cycle. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't make us victims as a whole as Black people. But what it does do is it should put a mirror in our face to say, okay, do we realize this? We're in an information age. Things are moving so fast. There are opportunities and resources that we have to work towards if we want to do something different. But do we expect for those systems that, if these are real systems, his argument with that was that systematic racism didn't exist, that everybody has equal opportunities to do whatever they want to do in their life with their life. Now, I'm going to say, Charlie, I disagree with that. I think that's cap. I think that it's a reason, because if you can admit the fact that if I don't have a dad in my home, I don't have the structure of getting the balance of parents, the discipline, the consistency, whatever that is that a man brings into a Black household, and also the caveat that you try to make him into being maybe somebody who does drugs. It's like, oh, he there, but he be cheating, or he be doing drugs, or he an alcoholic, or he don't work, or whatever the things are. That puts me at a deficit typically. Now, are there people who are successful that didn't have their dads? Yes. Look at NBA players. Look at them NFL players. And that's a bit extreme example, but I'm just saying, like, 75% of Black people 75% of dads not being in the home creates a grave issue for any kid. That's identity issues. That's looking up to drug dealers, people who make money illegally, whatever it may be, a need to fit in, whether that's getting in gangs. When I talk about the identity issues, whether that's somebody who, doesn't, is unsure of their gender, whatever that may be, that puts us at a disadvantage. So if you can admit that those things are present, we have to start being more proactive about what we do about it. They even talked about having programs that incentivize parents who have kids together staying together. Now, I do think that can be a level of cap to that, because people should be free to choose who they want to be with. But if we're being honest here, the statistics also show that finances are grave issues that are presented to families that could stop them from continuing in a happy homeostasis. Now, if we look at America, it's one of the richest countries. It's not, listen, there's plenty of countries that look better than America, but it's still one of the richest countries, still rising with a lot of opportunity. But it's not meant for everybody to sit at the top and benefit from the fruits of their labor. So before I go on a tangent there, let's go back and look at the list and deal with some of the things. So, and that was school to prison pipeline, right? Affirmative action, DEI, redlining, Jim Crow, new Jim Crow, slavery, 75% of Black homes don't have a father, food stamps, WIC, Section 8, in a poverty mindset, Here's what I want to know, and please hop in the chat and let me know how much of the things that we are talking about right now, how much of those things have to do with the mindset that a person actually has versus it being the just the reality of what they have to deal with as a human being, a black human being that is male, female, transgender, whatever you want that to be. And I'm not saying, oh, whatever, that's cool. I'm just saying, what do you think is the biggest issue? Is it a mindset thing, or is it just the reality of the world that we have to live in, being black people that represent a minority in America? Let's see. Ms. Reese said, how can you even change it though? Because truly it's a lot of people that are in this situation. How can you change what situation? That would be my question. Because I do believe that there's absolutely an answer for what I believe you're asking, but I would like clarity before I continue. And I'm going to take a little sip of this water, a little swig of this water, a little swig of this canteen. You feel me? All right, let's check these comments. All right, we ain't got nothing now just yet. Let me go back and look at the notes. Okay, so here's some things that I think we need to understand while we're waiting for the comment section to get jumping. Please hop in there and let me know what you think thus far. So the reason that I even titled this Love Thy Neighbor with a question mark is because I believe that the reason that Charlie Kirk dealt with a lot of the hatred and negativity that he actually dealt with, and Ms. Reese said black households. We'll come back to what I was saying because I want to dive right into this one. Okay, here's the reality. I'm going to move this down. Here's the reality. Black people in America, as which is no surprise to any of us, are still at a grave disadvantage. We have not been taught about money, how to budget, how to actually do finances without going to school and being educated that way. Now, that's even becoming less and less of an issue when we look at somebody like a Dave Ramsey, when we look at there's tax strategists, when you look at a platform like YouTube, it creates the ability for you to Google and search anything that can help you better YouTube University can get you where you're trying to go. But in reality, black people still have an issue with going to therapy. Black people as a whole, in my opinion, as a black man, still have issues with taking accountability for the choices that they've made in their lives, whether that is in relationships, whether that is poor use of finances, whether that is the jobs that they work at. We are at a severe disadvantage primarily because of ourselves. There is a level, and people don't want to talk about this, but we have to be real here. There is high levels of hypersexuality within our culture. I'm not here to talk about what white people do. And the number one thing that black people do when you start holding their feet to the fire, when you start holding our feet to the fire, is we start looking and pointing at everybody else. Oh yeah, well, what about the Mexicans? The Mexicans be doing whatever. And what about the whites? The whites do this. And it's, when do we take responsibility and accountability for ourselves? So if you are bad at relationships because you've never learned how to communicate, if you've never learned to take accountability, if you've never learned to process trauma, these are things that we have to normalize in our communities. These are things that we have to normalize being Black American, being Black people in general. That will greatly inform how we choose to do life. If we never choose to deal with the traumas of what we've dealt with, if people were molested as children, but then they perpetuate the cycle, or they go on and live hypersexual lives because they think that's just what they are. If you get married and you still want to bring people into your household, those are all things that are red flags that signal that something isn't right. But if we never own it, if we never say, okay, slavery happened, absolutely correct. Now what? Now what? Because education matters. But we also have to look at statistics that show what jobs pay the most. There are like a million jobs that need to be filled that pay high level salaries, but we don't want to do them. But then the commander in chief will take the people, albeit whether they're legal or not, and he'll get them out of America. And guess what? You have crops across the globe now, or across America, not the globe. You have crops and farms and quote unquote cheap labor that are not getting done. I don't know if you know this, but us as Americans have been incredibly lazy. It's no problem paying, respectfully, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but there's no problem paying Pablo to come do something at your house until somebody has an issue with, what am I trying to say here? It's like what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. When you benefit from it, it's cool. But then when it infringes upon, for example, it's like the Mexican vote incredibly, or the Hispanic vote, apologies, incredibly affected Trump getting in the office. But those are supposed to be the main people who had such a grave issue with him. How do you reconcile that? So all I'm saying is we don't do a good job of sticking together. And I'm not talking about, I don't come from the school of everything, when you do something wrong, everything is cool. No, we got to start normalizing accountability and telling the truth and looking at each other and saying, what are you contributing? What am I contributing? What is she contributing? Because if we don't, we're going to continue to perpetuate these cycles that promote high divorce rates, that promote high recidivism rates, people going back to jail at crazy. It's like, you know, you're considered a human and equal until you go to prison, right? You do know that, right? 14th Amendment. If we going to jail is not a badge of honor, but we've glorified the wrong things for a very long time. Street culture is cap. Shout out to Jesus is my plug. You can get the merch at jesusismyplug.net. Once again, shout out to Jesus is my plug. You can get the merch at jesusismyplug.net. Go and shop with them folks. Quality individual, quality brand. But anyway, we have to learn what it means to stick together. So that's the first thing. Get educated. Deal with your traumas. Understand that your finances matter. Stop glorifying culture that doesn't promote being alive. Gang culture, drug culture, it doesn't promote being alive. So that's a few things that the Black community could do to start worrying about how to get better. So to answer that question, to answer my own question from earlier, there is very much a victim and a poverty mentality within the Black community. I'm Black, so you can't get offended. I'm Black, so you can't say I'm lying. I ain't Uncle Tom. This is just what it is. We have to start learning how to take this stuff on the chin, folks. Pause. There's a poverty mentality. Anytime, prime example, one of my buddies knows people that live in certain neighborhoods that the plan is, her mama got the housing. That baby was born as a result of being on that housing, got WIC, got food stamps, got all of that, got Section 8. That baby became of age, had babies of her own, got housing, got food stamps, got WIC, lived off of it, had kids. And that was supposed to be the cycle. They just said that was okay. So my point is, somebody has to take ownership that that's not the way to go. The mindset is okay with not leaving any wealth. Now when somebody died, we got to do a fish fry. We got to do a car wash. We got to run around asking for money, but ain't nobody decided to get no life insurance. When Big Mama died, nobody said, okay, do we want to take this money? Do we want to take the money from the house and then figure out something else to do with it, buy some land? Do we want to make this the regular house that everybody live in? This is the type of stuff that we don't do. I done went down a rabbit hole, but my point is, Charlie Kirk, although all those things that I spoke about, mildly ignorant to some of the things that are actually going on in the Black community and realizing that we are at a deficit. We are at a deficit. Point blank, period. Black people, and and here's the other thing. The other thing that I want people to understand is when you talk about anybody other than maybe like the Indian culture, I'll say, maybe Asian culture. What is America? Like, what is America known for? Like, what can America say is its own? I just heard a stat. I was watching Joe Budden podcast, and it said that the top 5 things of like the top 5 cultures in America, and it was like Black culture, Japanese culture, Hispanic culture. It's like, what is American? Like, and I'm really asking, like, at the core of it, what does it mean to be American? I really want to know. I'm asking this question because it seems like everything about America is represented by other people's things. Ramen, pizza, burgers. What is like barbecue? Like, what makes America America? And I'm really asking. I'm not trying to be funny here. This is things that I'm wondering because, you say make America great again, and I'm like, what is that based off of? Like, what is making America great again? What is that based off of? When somebody like Charlie Kirk makes that statement, there was a time after the Civil War where Black people had positions at tables and, they had voting rights and things like that. But as we see, within 100 years, that changed very quickly, and then we were back on the outside. So the idea that some people were able to vote prior to the, Civil Rights Act and things like that, I mean, it was like pulling teeth to get access to those things. So it's not absurd. And the one thing that I can also respect about a guy like Charlie, and I'm a very down the middle person, not meaning I don't pick sides, but I want to see something for the full scale as what it is. He did acknowledge that racism did exist, that slavery did happen, and it was an atrocity. So I do believe that him, much like Trump, panders to white America, though. This is where I got to keep it a stack with you. I don't think he was this most atrocious guy like everybody else does, like a D.L. Hughley or Don Lemon or whoever, right? And that's fine. If that's what they believe, I'm not mad at them. But I tend to believe, just like I said when I started off, when I Googled information about him, it's already saying that he's this white supremacist. Now, I heard that he said, because I couldn't find this clip, but that he said that Black women didn't have the capacity to lead. And I told my lady, I said, here's the thing. He's wrong. But I think he could have worded this in a way that would have made more sense. I have worked for females. I work for Black females. I work for white females. I work for Mexican females, whatever. I think the issue that I have seen in general is that to collect a check, to tell people what to do, to bark orders for any gender is easy to do, period. But to be the type of leader that people can follow is a whole different set of circumstances. And I believe that being a true leader, although I don't necessarily believe it has anything to do with gender, I do believe that there has to be the capacity for it in that way. I've worked with and worked for Black women who were great leaders. People will never clip that part. But I've also worked for people who everything was too much. Everything. Everything was too much. And I think that in general, we have to be careful about making statements like that. And I think that's where Charlie got himself in trouble. You have to be careful about those type of statements that you make. And you have to, that's the part where the pandering comes in at. So I won't divulge any more into that unless we want to get into the weeds about that. Mile Marker 600 says, Black women in America hold some of the highest federal jobs in America. Black women in America hold some of the most highest paying jobs in America. So, so you just repeated that and you replaced federal jobs with high. Okay, I got you. I mean, okay, cool, but what does that mean, Mile Marker? Black women in America hold some of the highest federal jobs in America. Black women in America hold some of the most highest paying jobs in America. And that's another thing, right? Is that even true anymore? Because there was supposed to be this thing about this mass layoff of Black women in corporate America. It was just this buzz that was going around. So, I mean, I guess I'm saying, what is your point in saying that? If that's a true statement, what are you getting at by saying that, Mile Marker? And I'll try to leave the comments up as I continue on with this. Okay. So here's some takeaways. Freedom of speech doesn't apply to those who have nothing to say. No, I'm sorry. Freedom of speech doesn't apply to those who have something to say. What is my point with that? Okay, it's simple, my man. All right, calm down, brother. Calm down, dog. It's simple, my man. It means Black women are intelligent and they hold some of the highest paying jobs in America compared to Black men. Okay. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Now, so a guy like Charlie would say, and this is where there's a fork in the road with me. He would say that those are DEI hires. And I think that that's where you walk a slippery slope with that, right? I do know. Look, now I'm trying to be careful with my words. I just believe that sometimes, please hear my heart on this, sometimes even things like that can be a setup to perpetuate an agenda. When you talk about making sure you're going to hire people that are of other gender or certain colors. Now, the issue with that is we live in a place where it's supposed to be free. That's supposed to be the norm. Diversity. America's supposed to be this big melting pot. It's supposed to be what's celebrated. It's like we go between, there's an issue with, being able to hire people that you know and that you're friends with, which that's the issue with nepotism, right? Nepotism is fine if people are capable and qualified. But if you're leaving your Fortune 500 company to a bumbling idiot, then you're setting yourself up for destruction. So I think The same way you can argue for DEI is the same reason why I don't think you should hire your little brother to run your company, but just because he's your little brother. I don't think you should hire me just because I'm a man. I don't think you should hire me just because I'm black. You shouldn't hire me just because there may be a check that comes at the end of this whole situation. So I say all of that. All right. So when we look at Martin Luther King, when we look at Malcolm X, when we look at, and Lord, I am not comparing these people. I'm just naming somebody who has displayed freedom of speech. When we look at a Charlie Kirk, when we look at, it's a lot of people, to be honest. Most black leaders who developed a voice and were given platforms of some sort. It is believed that they were muzzled, or it's no secret that they were taken out or something like that, right? So freedom of speech is not free for those that actually have something to say. If there's some type of agenda, if there's some type of thing that is going to cause people to go against each other, that is going to be embraced. And I think, to be honest, I definitely believe that it can be a smokescreen, because I don't believe that it is meant, or it's never necessarily made for us to come together, so to speak. We're supposed to be these 50-something united but divided states when it matters to anybody else, to whoever. When we're supposed to be together, we come together. When we're supposed to be divided and everybody just on their own agenda, that's what it is. And so that was my belief when I was watching him debate people. I just had a thought process that, like, man, this stuff, freedom of speech it means something until you actually have something to say, and then it's like, we don't want you to speak. And so let me see what my brother said. Mile Marker said, you are absolutely correct. The reason I made that comment, it's because in corporate war, a white man will feel more comfortable with a black woman in office than a black man. Okay. If I'm a 6 foot, and here's the thing, man. Here's what I want people to start looking at, right? Even, I'm saying there are absolutely times and spaces and places where a black woman should have an opportunity to be a leader or to get a high-paying position, period. If you're qualified, give the person the job. Once again, that should be the basis and the crux of what this country is built on. Equal opportunity for all people, right? But for a white male counterpart, we got to admit that I would rather look at a beautiful black woman than a 6'5" bearded black man. The threat is not there. It's not the same type of threat. Let me say it that way. It's not the same type of threat. That is the bearded 6'6" black man with muscles that is very opinionated and stands on what he believes. I don't think that's what I don't believe in it, at least in corporate America. I don't believe that is something that is welcomed. So to Mile Marker's point, I do get what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an overarching point. I want us to stop getting in your emotions when you hear something that you think somebody is saying that may be counter to what you believe or what you understand. We live in a culture that clickbait, people get so offended by 60-second clips that they never really watch the entire clip. And I'm just wondering, what do we do about that? What do we do about us being able to be more active listeners, more active participants? That's going to serve us better as a people, as a country, etc. So my question to the black people, I have questions. I hope you have answers. How long do we talk about slavery, mass incarceration? Even the people, I think the fatherlessness thing is a living, breathing entity. But I'm like, how long does that become this narrative? Because it's not just about a Charlie Kirk. It is about us choosing to say we control our own narrative. I do believe. Let me go back and say this, and I might have wrote this down. I thought that I wrote this down, but I will say this. To tell somebody to be in America and to tell black people specifically, to pick themselves up by their own bootstraps, I don't inherently have an issue with that, depending on the source. Here's what I can say. In America, in the United States of America, so we're clear on what country I am talking about here. White people, and I love white people. I don't have a problem with you. I'm just being real about what is going on here, okay? White people don't own the right to tell black people to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. Because you've never had to pick yourself up by your bootstraps in America. You came over here, you settled, you brought help. You invited other foreign entities to come. You gave them land incentives. You gave them grant incentives to build businesses. So you don't get to tell me that I'm not deserving of resources or that I have to pick myself up by my bootstraps, because you don't identify with that struggle. That's just the reality. A part of my problem with using this platform is you see the people you see how many people are actually like in the chat. You see how many people are actually watching. And when I make statements like that and you see mass exodus from the video, it just goes to show you how ignorant we are in America. Nobody wants to hear the hard truth about who they are or about their flaws. It's the people will go for what their itching ears want to hear. There has to be truth. Charlie Kirk at one point said that during that period of redlining, black people had a higher wage gap. Like they made more money per household than white men. So even if white men only benefited from housing, black people had better advantages because they made more money. Can't lie to you, I think it's stupid. Do I believe that Charlie Kirk was a believer? I struggle with seeing why people. Here's my thing, right? So I go talk to two of my coworkers, and I asked them, man, what do you think about Charlie Kirk? One person said, man, F that guy, man. He said this, he said that. He was a racist. You name it. They said it, right? I said, okay. I'm gonna go ask my other coworker. This is like the complete, like they're probably far left, far right in belief system, like literally. So I go ask the other guy, I say, man, what do you think about Charlie Kirk, man? Oh, man. I mean, he got really like humble, like, oh man, great guy, man. Like he gets a hard rap, man. He really stood on his faith, man. He's one of the few outlets where they really talked about God, and I'm like, I couldn't have got two polar opposite statements about what they thought about a man. It was intriguing. And by and large, I don't disagree. I think, if I'm being honest, I believe one person, I think they both looked at clips. I'll say it this way, because I think I heard one of the guys say that said, oh, he's a good guy. I think he actually admitted, like, I haven't watched a bunch of his stuff, but I have watched some stuff. And I'll be honest, I don't know if the other guy actually did watch content. But then you had somebody like my boy Ron, who was like, man, I don't know, man. I saw some stuff and it said this, and then I saw some other stuff, and I'm like, what? Buddy said that? But I think that when you are a race baiter, when you are when you use the Bible or God as a weapon, you don't learn how to love people into understanding. And I don't believe that in that way, Charlie did a good job of loving his neighbor. My boy Mal Marker, man, I appreciate you for coming on back around now. He said, first, or I believe this is a he, forgive me if I believe it's a he. First or second generation of Americans telling blacks to go back to where they came from, or telling Mexicans from Texas to go back to where they come from, is disturbing. Fair. Blacks been here for past 500 years. Texas, California, New Mexico, Arizona, they used to be Mexico. That used to be Mexico. Absolutely. I'm picking up what you're putting down, Mal Marker. I'm picking up what you're putting down. So I understand that. Yeah, man. It's an impervious place to be in, because when you look at we, and I'm not just saying we as in black people, we as in most of the minorities built the country. We built the country. Hey man, come over here, do little, cheap labor and go back to where you came from. Are you gonna provide the boat with an S on the end of it? Are you gonna provide the boats? Like, I'm gonna be honest. I want people. Here's the thing too. I want people to stop acting like this. Like, I don't want to sound ungrateful, because I do believe that we are afforded opportunities and abilities in this country that most people aren't. But man, stop acting like it's just a party over here, fam. I gotta trade my money for time, and I gotta trade my time for money. So stop acting like America is like Four Seasons or something. It's not. That's just foolish, to be honest with you. Anyway, I continue. We can't ignore the need for God and then blame him for the issues. This is church flow. Charlie Kirk professed to be a believer. And so what we must understand is that God has been, is, and will always be the answer to the problem. Now, I have a theory, and I pray that this lady never see this video, only because of what I'm about to say. There's a lady in my apartment complex. I don't know her name, so I could be naming any lady. I ain't gonna name the car she be in. I ain't gonna name the song she sing. I'm just gonna say it's a lady. This lady, almost like most mornings, I ain't gonna say every morning, but most mornings, when I go out to go to work, she's sitting in her car and she is screaming church songs to the highest degree. I believe that because we've been taught wrong biblically from pulpits, that we believe that we can pity our way to God's hand and to God's heart. I believe that we think that because they have made the idea of worship not something that starts in here and manifests itself out, that if it's a song that feels good and we can sing it and it makes us want to shout or run or fall out, that we believe that that is our best offering to God. Couple that with hardships, couple that with a pity that you have for yourself, we think that we can mope ourselves into the presence of God. When in reality, there are things that need to be done that really get the ear of the one that you love. If we look at our children, if we look at relationships, if my kids walked up to me and they were, Daddy, I do, I don't know why I can't get what Riley get. And Ava always get out my face. Or if I give you something, it's gonna be with the caveat of don't do that again. But showing absolute gratitude to me as a father, just calling me as my oldest baby to say, hey dad, how you doing? Hey, come down here this weekend, let's hang out. Whatever. You would be able to get more from me versus you just, it's like a dog standing over looking at you with the sad face. And you just like, man, I'll kick you, dog. No, not literally. Peter, chill out. But it's just the idea of it's not even like coming with a humble heart. It's false humility and it's pity and it's shame. And we believe that gets us closer to the ear of God, the heart of God, the hand of God, than true worship or true gratitude, true affection for God. Just stopping by to talk to him because I love him. You get what I'm saying? And so I believe that we don't have the right view of who God is. And because we don't have the right view, we think that the poor things that we offer to him, the lowest form of affection or adoration that we offer to him is good when it doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. Darius Daniels says that worship is God's love language. And so if we are going to learn a way or the way to worship him truly in spirit and truth, that is how we get the ear of God. So as a country, as a nation, as a people, if we're going to just blame, if we're just going to run to him when we need something, blame him when stuff don't go right, but then it's hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, when things go right, that we're out of order from the beginning. Mile Marker said, "You're absolutely correct. Most people do not realize that time on this earth is limited. Everyone's got to go." Absolutely, but where was we going with that? Because hey, come on now, we want to do great things on earth too now. You know what I'm saying? But you are correct. We have to. It's like you live with the end in mind, but then you also understand that there's a purpose. There's something you got to carry out. So being in relationship with God, doing a better job of exemplifying relationship with the people around you that you do life with, all of those things matter. My auntie, hey auntie, she said, "Hey Auntie baby, how are you doing? I'm running late tonight. I don't know what is wrong with my notification. They have been tripping, but that won't stop auntie from supporting you." And that's what I'm talking about. I love you the long way. You know what I'm saying? I love you the long way. You hear me? I appreciate it. But yes, we talking Charlie Kirk. We were talking about that, but we're also dealing with what is our role as believers in this type of instance, right? I believe that overall Charlie Kirk did a poor job of learning how to love his neighbor. I think he did a poor job of knowing how to communicate from a heart of humility. Statistics don't deal with the heart of a crying mother. Doesn't deal with a man trying to make sense of a woman that left him or that died or that lost a child. That also happened to be a minority, because most of the time the issues were dealt with spoke to the minority. And so I just think it's important that we always keep those things in mind. In America, in our households, we have to learn to lead with love. I'm not acting like I've always got this right either, because I haven't. Sometimes, kinfolk, I just got it wrong. But I truly believe that when you know better, you do better as well. And so as believers, as men, as women, as husbands, as fathers, we have to learn how to lead with love, servant leadership. And so as we go to platforms and we have certain conversations and we argue our points, we also have to keep in mind who's the end recipient and what is it that we're trying to say? What is it that you're actually trying to convey? My auntie said, I love you too, nephew. Keep doing what you are doing. Absolutely. I appreciate you. KD McAllister said, RIP Charlie. For sure. Hey man, I don't sit up here and wish death on anybody. I do always want to call a spade. And I do believe that in that messaging, what ended up happening is a man who had a family, who had a wife, who had children. You can't lose sight of what you're doing it for. And although it is cool to be critically acclaimed, it's cool to be a household name. All of those things are cool. Always understand what is the purpose. I don't get up and just go to work because I love going to work so bad. I promise you, I want to do this full time, absolutely. But I don't get up and go punch a clock every day because I love to do it. I have responsibilities. And so I also have been challenged to my core when I hear a guy like Darius Daniels talk about how the Bible says, do everything without grumbling and complaining. For some reason, when I heard him say it this last time and how he was checked, it checked me. I said it before, I'll say it again. I think it's so important that we don't just get in the word. I think it's incredibly important that we let the word get in us. It has to penetrate us, that causes us to want to live in a way that is transformative. Mile marker. Mile marker going hard in the paint, dog. I hope you can subscribe, dog, and hit the like button because you've been chiming in with the kid, man. I think you'll enjoy the network. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if you're into sports. I don't know if you're into men's topics and things of that nature, man, but we offer a wide variety of things here at the Mind of a Man Network, man. So please, if you could, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. I'm only saying that because you've been chiming in. I've been learning to let people make their own decisions, but I encourage everybody who's been watching and tuning in, please hit the subscribe button if you've been watching for any considerable amount of time. But my boy Mile Marker said, let's put it this way in America. You got to grind, you got to work to achieve your goals, whatever they may be, and it is a part of what you can do for America, not what America can do for you. You know, I always had a thought process on that slogan. My fellow Americans, it is not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I think that is gaslighting at its finest, Mr. President. I'm not going to lie to you. I think you are capping us down with that type of statement, Kenfolk. Because, yes, I choose to live in the country, but the way that it is set up, Kenfolk, I ain't got to do nothing for this country, but I can be a taxpaying citizen. I can help keep my community safe. I could be, like I said, I could be a taxpayer. I can raise a family. I can contribute. I could be a good human being. The idea, like, just no, ain't what you could do, what we could do for you. What can you do for us? It's like, man, you gaslighting us, Kenfolk. I call cap. You capping me down like that. That's captivating. You feel me? But I digress. Okay. So this was my other takeaway, and we're almost towards the end here. If you got anything else that you want to chime in on, please let me know. Political pundit worship is dangerous and should not be what governs our belief system. This is what is incredibly dangerous to me. It is the idea that Trump could be so in line with what we represent that it's almost like we run to a tweet of his or whatever it may be, that we don't it's like we run so much into to represent what the red side says or the blue side says or the gray whatever liberal represents, that we don't realize that these people are human beings that have lives, that a lot of the times these parties work together. A lot of the times these parties, they go home and they just live different lives than what they may even portray. I'll be honest, and I know that honesty isn't welcome in this culture. It only works when it represents who you are. But I find it interesting, and I'll say this because I don't have an issue with anybody. And let me read what my boy Mile Marker said. He said, "This is my first time here. Welcome, my guy." You know what I'm saying? I believe that I'm thinking of a name. I'm trying to think of a name to represent my community, and I'm not saying you're a part of my community. If you want to be, I welcome you. But that represents the mind, that represents, a family legacy. I think I want to call it the brain trust. How y'all feel about that? For anybody who may be rocking and rocking and rolling with me, but what do you think about the idea of a community being called the brain trust? Because I think that's dope. I ain't gonna lie to you. But he said, "This is my first time here. Thank you for giving me the platform. I will be back." Man, much love, my guy. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Gotta show love where love is. You know what I'm saying? Gotta show love where the love is due. But anyway, let me take Charlie off of there. But yes, let me go back to my statement because kind of got tangential there. Yeah, political pundit worship is dangerous. We have to start realizing that these people are not our saviors. If Kamala would have got in office, she wouldn't have saved us. Trump is in office. He ain't saved us. I think we have to start being honest about the fact of the world we live in. It's fallen. They wanted, think about in Jesus' time, the people thought that he was going to come back and take the kingdom by force. He came to be slaughtered. So in that same way, let's just keep in mind that the black problem isn't going to be solved. While we on this side of the cross, the black problem ain't going to be solved. I hate to break it to you. Race wars aren't going to be solved on this side of the cross. Evil won't be dismantled on this side of the cross. There's one Savior. I'm sorry. You don't believe it? More power to you. I love you. There's one Savior. One hope. It ain't red. It ain't blue. It ain't an elephant. It ain't a whatever that other thing is. A donkey, I think it is. It's an elephant and a donkey, right? It ain't neither. Them parties aren't gonna save us. My hope is built on nothing less Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest flame, the sweetest rain, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. Listen, I'm sorry. This is church flow. I am a believer, and I'm just here to tell you that you don't have hope in these people to save you. That's it. That's it. I want to say this. Please be careful what you do with your platforms. I understand how visceral some of the comments can be. I understand how hateful that the world can seem at times. Seek to have conversations with people. Seek to communicate beyond what you feel. Because on the other side of those feelings can be understanding, can be growth, can be wisdom, can be knowledge. And then we can actually build together. I don't think that every time we get on a platform, I have to be converting somebody. I need to start understanding more what people think and how they got to that place, why they feel the way they feel. Last thing I'll say before I get out of here. I was talking to my coworker today, and I walked up on her and I said, tell me something good. I said, you ain't got to tell me something good. Just tell me something. And she said, Grand Rising, King. And I said, yeah, all right. Like, what? And she was like, what? What's the problem? I'm like, that has a negative connotation within the black community. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, well, most of the time when people say things like that, it's usually a guy who stays at home with his mom. He don't shower. He got dreads. He scratch up on his armpit all the time and talk about the Anunnaki and all this type of stuff, right? And she was kind of taken aback by that, and she said, well, y'all are just weird. And I'm like, well, I ain't weird, but I mean, that's just what it is. And I said, let me guess, he's also one. And so I said, well, what is the reason why you say Grand Rising? What does it mean to you? And she said, well, it's, to say good morning is a European term. And we've been so indoctrinated with European culture. And, it's a way to like not indoctrinate ourselves with that culture. And that's when I said, let me guess. He says that white people, Europeans, are the ones who introduced us to Jesus. And she said yes, as I knew she would. And I just left it alone. Wasn't the time, wasn't the place to go into that. But let me be very clear. As a person who spreads knowledge, or if that's what you call knowledge or information, right? And I'm not talking about my coworker because I do love her to life. She is a good cat, man. She's solid. You know what I'm saying? But I think that we have to be very careful with where we cite our sources from. It is a fact. Let me be clear here, people. It is a fact that the Bible existed long before European people got access to it and used it to falsely indoctrinate people with that culture, with black people with that slave culture mentality. It floated around Africa for a long, and I don't want to say millennia if that's not correct, but it existed long before Europeans got access to it and used it to justify enslaving people around this globe. Know your facts. Period. White people didn't invent the Bible. Europeans didn't invent the Bible. The Jews were people of color. And you don't have to look that deep to realize that. Look at where they were at. It's either in Africa or directly connected to Africa. It don't even, we got to start, come on, y'all. Come on. 2025. We ain't still saying that Jesus was a white guy, are we? We need some type of profound intellectual truth to know that Jesus wasn't white. Here's the thing. He wasn't black either. He was not black like I look. More than likely, he had like an olive tone to his skin. More than likely, he was not a black man as you and I know black people to be. But he wasn't white. I'm sorry. It is what it is. For us to be this woke culture, we be so lost. We be so like in the weeds that it's like, bro, don't stop telling people good morning, bro. Just tell me good morning, dog. Just tell me good morning, bro. That's all I'm saying, dog. Ain't nothing wrong with telling somebody good morning, bro. I'm just saying. It's cool. Just tell me good morning, bro. I don't. I just, man. I just. We supposed to be further along, bro. We supposed to be further along, dog. That's all I got, man. I don't be want to offend nobody. I don't want, but the truth, it offends. And a shout to quote Darius Daniels again, we have to start normalizing. We have to start normalizing telling people the truth in love. To tell somebody the truth in love is to actually have love for them because you're telling them the truth. And we got to stop getting in our feelings about things that we don't understand or we disagree with. It's okay. Life get better. We got to start eating that truth, though. Anyway, listen, man, we've been going for an hour and a half. I appreciate everybody who has been tapping in, man, with the Mind of a Man Network. This is the network, kinfolk. You know what I'm saying? And this is Church Flow. I do believe that within the culture, I do believe that within the culture of church, we talk about real life things. We talk about what's going on in politics. We talk about what's going on in culture because it matters. And it has an impact on how we live our lives. It has an impact on how we view the world around us. Syncretism, meaning that we bring in things from other cultures and belief systems and religious values that don't even mesh with what we truly believe at our core. Syncretism. Or legalism, meaning that we look at life through this rigid standpoint of what we have believed the Bible to be as truth, even though a lot of the times it's actually not even the truth that they proclaim it to be. And then, as Daniel speaks about, there's third way living. What did the king say? This platform is designed and desires to be what must be said for the betterment of the body. I don't care what you think about me. I don't care how you feel about me. But what I do care is that we can communicate and conversate to have a common ground if you so choose to listen. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Auntie. My comments didn't show up today, and it is frustrating the life out of me. I ran into a lot of issues with this show today. I appreciate y'all because if any of y'all that hopped on here and stayed on here, I want y'all to understand how hard it was to actually get this to work today. These comments, dog, wait. Let me try something real quick. Yeah, the comments ain't even, it's cool. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it, kinfolk. Let me try this. Now the comments showing up. Speak, nephew. Teach us. Let God use you. What you are saying is the truth, pure facts. Much appreciated, Auntie. Always appreciated. I really mean that. That's my girl right there, dog. My Auntie, dog. I promise you. But anyway, do we have anything else to contribute to Church Flow tonight? I do open up the floor. Shameless plug. I am capable of taking super chats and super stickers. If you look in there next to the comment, you are able to show love to the platform, as well as the Cash App is the Mind of a Man. Cash App symbol, the Mind of a Man. Listen, bruh, I will be here. I'm playing it, and so I appreciate you. Tomorrow we will be coming back with another show because this is a network. So the late night shift live will be coming on tomorrow night rather. And so I appreciate everybody for tapping in. Make sure that if you are in the local area, if you are in Texas, if you're in the DFW area, for the fellas, please show up to the Vault in Mansfield, Texas, 5:45 p.m. The Mind of a Man think tank will be happening. It is a place meant to encourage, to encourage, to build up, and to give accountability. Help build each other up as men. It's really that simple, man. We're holding in too much stuff and we're not dealing with what is going on. Once again, shout out to Jesus is my plug. This is the hat that I have on, and I have the slides on. It's a dope brand. JesusIsMyPlug.net. Go shop with him. Go show him some love. He's a dope guy, solid guy, man. And we appreciate him for bringing us the dope content that he does. Until next time, we love you. May the Lord keep you. And we'll see you at the conference, man. I'm out. Y'all be blessed by the best. Peace.